Hello again, my name is Jason, and I'm going to be talking about Sense and Sensibility and sea monsters. For those of you who have watched some of my videos that I've done in the past, you'll know that I recently being since I started these a few months ago, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Now, these two books are published by the same company, but they're not by the same people, unless you count Jane Austen, as they say, Jane Austen as the co-author of these books. So, I read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and there were some problems that I had with it, and I listed those. Let me just say that when I first came across Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, I thought, oh, that's an interesting crossover there. It could be good. And then, of course, Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters came out, and I thought, oh, might be good as well. Now that I've read them both, my verdict is neither one of them was good. So, it follows the same general story as the original Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Same characters, for the most part, exist in both, but they might have different interpretations, shall we say. For instance, there's a Mrs. Jennings, who is the mother-in-law to Eleanor, Marianne, and their sister Margaret. It's the mother-in-law of their uncle, if I remember the relationship correctly. So the way it's set up is that they have the Dashwoods are living at this place called Norwood, and their father dies, and his son inherits the estate. His wife is not a very nice person, kind of a very greedy person, but his last request before he died was that his son, who's taking over, would take care of his mother, his stepmother, and his half-sisters. And his wife, basically, the brother's wife, basically convinces him that he should use the money for their son, and they're wealthy. They're very, very wealthy at this point, and they have more than enough money to provide for the sisters and the stepmother, but his wife is not a very genial person, shall we say, and convinces him that it would be better spent or better saved for their son's inheritance. So the sisters and the stepmother, they feel very unwelcome. Not that their brother, their half brother, is in any way responsible, but there's very much an unfriendly atmosphere because of the sister-in-law. So as soon as they can move out, they do. And this is all pretty much the same as Jane Austen. No changes there. The big change is that somehow or other the alteration occurred. And the alteration was some sort of curse or chemical imbalance, something. And it affected all creatures of water. Not just sea, but lakes, rivers, everything. And now all life in the sea, or all life in the water, is inimical to mankind. Which, when I'm sitting here reading this, they're like talking about taking boats all the time and going out on the rivers and whatnot. And I'm sitting there going, if I was in such a situation and there was a chance that a good chance, not a minor chance, a very good chance that anytime I went out on the water, I would be attacked and killed. I would stay away from the water. I would use just enough to keep me alive, to drink and bathe, but I wouldn't be taking any pleasure cruises. So anyway, they have a relation, Sir John, and he basically says, come and live in this cottage that I have. And so they immediately pick up and move. And they need to actually take a boat to get to where they're going. And en route, they're attacked by a sea monster. It's the whole thing. Sir John lives on an island in the Devonshire coast called Deadwind Island. And the cottage that he gives to the Dashwoods, the mother and the sisters, is on an island called Pestilent Isle. After a little while of reading through this, I finally think I realized what is wrong with Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. The authors were trying way too hard. I think, so Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice are considered classics. I can't say that it's my genre of books, and I can't say that I will ever feel enough curiosity to actually sit down and read them. I have seen the movies of both, more than one adaptation even. And to me, that's plenty. But I think that they could have stuck more with the original story. They are classics for a reason. I think they should have stuck closer to the story and not tried to be so ridiculous. Maybe they were trying to be funny, but it wasn't. It was stupid. I'm sitting there going, well, you know, they're like I said, they go from a safe, well, I shouldn't say safe, their estate where they were living was guarded by tiki torches, and they had servants that were prowling the grounds to make sure that any sea monster started coming up on land to get somebody was immediately set upon and killed. And they take a dangerous sea voyage to a seaside shanty, and it's always called a shanty. But to me, it seemed much bigger than a shanty. To a seaside shanty, and there was every reason to believe that in going from their estate where they were living, just to get to the island, they wouldn't make it. They would all be massacred by some sort of sea monster before they even got there. Again, it's just too overboard. They should have stuck more closely. Now, you're looking at the cover here. This is on the cover is Marianne and Colonel Brandon. Now, if you're familiar with the story, what happens is when they're back at Norwood before they move, Eleanor falls in love with Edward Ferrars. That's her sister-in-law's brother, and he in love with her in turn. But they never get engaged or anything, and then they leave, and they were discouraged. Eleanor was discouraged from pursuing Edward by everyone, basically, except her family, her immediate sister and her mother and stuff. They thought Edward was boring, not that attractive, but a nice guy. So they get over to the coast. They meet this Colonel Brandon, who was afflicted by a sea witch's curse. So he has this. He's kind of half man, half fish. The tentacles and stuff. I shouldn't say half fish. He's more half octopus than half fish. But they call him half man, half fish. Octopus isn't really a fish. Anyway, all that aside, you can see why she's not immediately taken with Colonel Brandon. He's physically deformed. He turns out to be a great guy, but he's got this physical deformity. Plus, he's around 35 and she's 17-ish. So there's quite an age difference. If he was around 25, she would have, Marianne wouldn't have been that reluctant to marry him, but because he's an older gentleman, she just doesn't, is not into him that way. But he immediately falls in love with her. She's very attractive, and she's a nice girl and all that stuff. Well, they get to the island. She gets attacked by an octopus for no apparent reason. She's crossing a river or something, and this octopus attacks her. I'm sitting there going, really? You have an octopus somehow, a saltwater creature, swim up a freshwater river to attack a girl. That makes no sense. Have her on the beach get attacked by the octopus. Anyway, she's saved by Willoughby. Willoughby comes out of nowhere in a diving suit with flippers and the helmet and all that stuff, and fights off the octopus, saves her, takes her back, all that stuff. She immediately falls in love with Willoughby, and it seems that Willoughby is in turn in love with her. They get along pretty well, and there's an expectation that before long they will be engaged, if they are not engaged in secret between each other already. So, I mean, they keep talking, and this goes back to the writing for Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. They keep talking about things like lung capacity and swimming form and all this stuff, and I'm sitting there going, really? That's great and all, but that's stupid. Why? And they're using these as qualifications for future husbands or future wives. In Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, it was their prowess with martial arts and equipment in killing zombies. And here it's, well, we gotta somehow beat the sea creatures, and so in order to do that, we have to be, we have to have good lung capacity and be able to hold our breath for a long time and be able to swim well. That will, ensure our victory against the denizens of the deep. I mean, come on. It's dumb. It's too much. But anyway, the other thing that kind of bothered me was that, again, there's been this alteration. Sea life is now trying to attack and kill all humanity on sight. And one of the things that the British decide to do is build an undersea city. This is actually the second undersea city. The first undersea city was destroyed. So they have Submarine Station Alpha that was destroyed, and now they have Submarine Station Beta. And of course, a lot of the book takes place in Submarine Station Beta, where they're living under the water with things trying to kill them from outside. To me, it would have made more sense to, like I said, stick closer to Jane Austen's original work, not go so overboard, and make this some sort of like, there are mermen now, and there's an undersea kingdom, and part of it is ruled by a treaty that the Mer people did with Britain, and so there are people like Colonel Brandon, who's actually a British citizen, but a merman. Not some sort of weird, tentacly cursed man. And he's interested in Marianne Dashwood. Makes more sense. And then we don't have this crazy, stupid thing every time a fish comes on in the pages, that it's trying to kill someone. It's stupid. It's overboard. It should have been thrown away. The other thing, there's a couple other things actually. Sir John, his wife, Lady Middleton, her origin was dumb. Apparently, Sir John was an explorer. He was trying to find what had caused the alteration. In pursuit of the solution to the alteration, his group of explorers came upon her tribe, and then they got in an altercation, and so his men killed all the men, all the children, everyone in the tribe except the women, and then they carted them off and married them. And so the entire rest of the book, Lady Middleton is trying to escape from her husband and go back to the island that she lived on, which makes no sense because there's no one there. They were all killed. Everyone. And all the people that she knew are now wives to people who live in England. Mrs. Jennings is Lady Middleton's mother in this. And she's, I mean, she's kind of crazy, but she's perfectly happy. And she has a sister, Mrs. Palmer, that's there. I mean, there's no reason for her to go. She may hate her husband, but there's no reason for her to go back. Her entire tribe is gone. If she goes back there, there's nobody going to be there. And if there is somebody going to be there, it's going to be a completely new tribe who may not take to her. Who knows? But like I said, they just go way overboard with this nonsense. They should have just stuck more closely to Jane Austen's original work and intent. Maybe, like I said, maybe introduced some of these elements, but they didn't need to just dump it. And it just made it too far out there, too stupid. So yeah, I don't know. You may like Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. You may like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I didn't. They were awful. They like I said, I think the authors were just trying too hard to cram all this stuff in, and it just didn't work. Good luck to Quirk Classics. Good luck to, it's Ben H. Winters was the co-author in this case, but hey, you know, more power to him. I actually have Simon R. Green, one of my favorite authors. He has several. His Paranormal Detective, his Supernatural Spy series. It's The Night Side and The Secret Histories. Hawk and Fisher. All mashups. They all worked great. They all worked wonderfully. I very much enjoyed them. But this, yeah, no. Give it a miss. Give it a miss. As always, like and subscribe. Leave any comments down below. And until next time, enjoy what you're reading. Oh, and put on the notification.